Yes, usually Kobe writes the scripts as well, and Bruce, before we all read it, go, that's good. This time they've let me loose. So this is going to be good. I'm here for the promised rant by Josh. Yeah, if you were with us in the watch-along coverage over the weekend, it was pretty much always going to be known that we were going to be talking about the FIA and the Qatar Grand Prix. Here we are. Good evening to you both. So, after Sunday's Formula One Qatar Grand Prix, the teams, drivers, and fans were all asking the same thing. What has happened to the FIA? One simple incident that should have been a 30-second virtual safety car to remove a wing mirror developed into a wonderful description of how short-staffed, inexperienced, and scared the FIA officials now are. And that's not just talking. Directly interfering with races by deploying safety cars or red flags, but with the knowledge that they are now being judged in the background on every move they make by an FIA president so controlling over Formula One, the likes of which we haven't seen this level since Jean-Marie Balest. Now, starting first in Qatar and the stewarding in that race. Now, we look to the wing mirror that fell off Alexander Albon's Williams and ended up just off the racing line down the main straight. There it sat for 3 laps before being struck by Valtteri Bottas while he was moving out of the way of Charles Leclerc to be lapped. Now, the mirror shattered into a million pieces, resulting in carbon fibre, which is sharper than a razor, and glass across the straight and pit lane exit. After a further lap, the safety car was deployed. Kobe, starting with you on this one. Considering we all knew it would need to be cleared up, what do you make of the delay? And is this an example of the race director being both inexperienced at the top level, alongside working his 3rd weekend running across 3 different time zones?
Yeah, the race director, Rory Marquez, he's been pretty busy the last 3 weekends. He was at the Macau Grand Prix. Then he flew all the way over towards the west coast of the United States to Las Vegas. And then you fly all the way back across the world to the Middle East to do Qatar. Like, man, just think of the jet lag that, not just Rory Marquez, but everyone inside the Formula One paddock is feeling. It's just really crazy, the way that the schedule is. Have weekends like this where you're traveling all the way across the world. And it really does a lot to the body, and the mind as well. So, yeah, for sure, you can say maybe Rory Marquez wasn't on his game, because when you're in so many different time zones, it can really mess with your way of thinking. And yeah, we've also seen, working at the pinnacle of motorsports in Formula One is different, than directing any other racing series on the planet. You can say, yeah, Rory Marquez, he did a great job in Formula 2 or whatever. There's just a step below F1, but F1 is the real deal. Look what happened to Niels Vittich, who is now out as the F1 race director. Eduardo Freitas, who is one of my favorite race directors. I love listening to his voice when he's on the radio at the World Endurance Championship races, or the other ACO sanctioned events. He got some races, but he didn't really do well, in Formula One, which really surprised me, because I've always held Eduardo Freitas in great regard. But now Rory Marquez is in the driver's seat, and a lot of people, are very critical of how this particular situation was handled. I'm not going to go into too many details. I already set my piece on the Grit Live wrap-up show. We have a separate video, so please be sure to check that out if you want to know what my full thoughts were on that. But to leave that piece of debris out on the racetrack, that was totally inexcusable and unacceptable for something like that to happen. It could have been much worse. I really hate what happened to the drivers who suffered from this incident. But imagine if it would happen to race leader Max Verstappen at the time. That would have been way worse, to have the race leader, have his race ruined or compromised because of something like that. Thankfully, it didn't get that bad, but still, that the fact that it affected the races for others, that's something that did not need to happen at all. And I really don't know where we go moving forward from here. But real unfortunate for Rory Marquez. I think a lot of people were looking forward to seeing what he could do in this role. But after this debacle, it really made him, look bad in this situation.
Well, good evening, guys. Hello, everybody. What a terrific Grand Prix that was at the weekend, and we're going to get to all the points arising from it. We'll start with Mirrorgate. You talk about Marquez. The whole of the Sunday was a bit of a mess, wasn't it? Because we had the crash, I think it was on the first lap of Porsche Sprint Cup Middle East, which damaged the barrier on the exit of the final corner. That then scrapped the F1 Academy race. Probably talk about that later on. Delayed the start of F2. Grand Prix went off as normal at the normal time, but there was all the angst in race control and things over all that nonsense going on in the morning and into the afternoon, which I guess put a strain on some people. And then we have Alexander Albon's mirror fall off Josh, as you say, and it sat there just before the blend line of pit exit on the straight. I know we all like to play couch quarterback or couch football manager. Now we can play couch race control. Surely there should have been some. It looked like they were just asleep, really, on this. If I was doing it, I would have tried to find a gap in the traffic, perhaps, and send a brave marshal running under a virtual safety car to just grab that and either go from one side of the track to the other or back, pick it up, clear it, job done. Obviously, as you mentioned, Valtteri Bottas ended up spearing it while doing the best thing possible by getting out of the way of the leaders coming behind him. I think it was Leclerc, wasn't it, at the time, that got past on the straight. And of course, Qatar, that is the only real overtaking spot on the racetrack, aided by DRS. So we were in a position where we were going to get no overtaking until something was done about that. We had two cars go down with punches, Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. We're still not 100% clear if the punches were caused by the debris or they just, by coincidence, happened to have two punches at almost exactly the same time. So that will have to wait for Parade to come back. I'm not sure if we've heard on that or not yet, but just a bizarre situation that everyone can see that was going to cause a problem before Valtteri cleared it up there by charging straight through it, not of his own fault, doing the right thing and getting out of the way of the leaders, but it just caused chaos. And right in the middle of a pit sequence, any IndyCar fans watching or maybe IMSA fans watching would have seen that and gone, oh, I know what they're doing here. They're letting the pit cycle roll through before they do anything about this to not affect anybody's race. I hate that thing that happened. It happens in IndyCar quite often. It happens in IMSA quite often. That's the luck of the draw. Who cares if you get stuck on court? You know, your race is ruined by this, a safety car or virtual or whatever, because of something happening just before you came to pit or just after you pitted. That's the luck of the draw, unfortunately. You can never try to second guess on that one. But the whole thing was a bit of a disaster. And then there was all the other stuff, which we're about to get to with all the penalties. As Josh has written in the script, it was quite literally penalty bingo. And I think it was only 3 people across the whole race that were not investigated for something or another, which is that's just laughable in itself.
Yeah, the game of penalty bingo was absolutely fantastic. Just before we get into that, this is Megan's notes that she writes down in the commentary box. Take a look at the top part. That's Las Vegas. There is Qatar. Wow. Every single lap, she has to write something down. And she sits there watching race controls monitors. It's unbelievable. So, yes, a total of 7 different time penalties were given, ranging from 5 seconds to 10-second stop-go penalty. Now, that is the harshest in-race penalty you can get outside of the black flag, which we saw back in Sao Paulo for Nico Hülkenberg. Now, the 10-second stop-go was given to McLaren's Lando Norris, and that's because he failed to slow under double yellow flags because of the mirror on the start-finish straight. Now, the penalty is fair, as it has been deployed 3 times in the last 5 seasons. However, many don't agree, because even though the double-waved yellows wear out the FIA messaging system, GPS and light panels were constantly second-guessing themselves. Here's an image taken from the FIA race control messages document that is published after the end of each session. Now, as you can see here, the rate of messages are hard to keep up with, ranging from double yellow, single yellow, and the DRS being switched on and off. And just see at the bottom there, at 19:56, safety car deployed. The first message for the yellow flag comes in at 19:48. So that is a really long time as well. 8 minutes of drama where they could have put the safety car out. Matt, sticking with you on this one, How do the drivers, let alone the marshals, react to what clearly seems like miscommunication between the flag post and race control? And how do you have any views on fans that are now saying that this level of decision changing is potentially dangerous in future incidents?
I mean, that's possible. But that whole screen grab is just word jumble, isn't it? I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, with the added DRS disabled, DRS enabled, obviously doesn't help that because the incident happened in the only DRS zone, as we talked about before. But the double yellow in track sector 2 is quickly followed by it's clear in track sector 2. Well, it isn't, is it? Because the mirror's on the track. So the whole thing is just an absolute head scratcher. And as you say, marshals at the side of the track at the marshals posts are going to be, and they've all got the. I don't know for certain, but I'm guessing they've got this screen at all the marshals posts so they can see what the messages are coming through, or at least have radio comms back to. Yeah, I thought they did have, and they've got radio comms obviously up to race control as well. They're probably standing there going, well, what do they want us to do? Do they want us to go and get it? Are they going to give us a window to try and go and get this? While we were discussing what we're trying to do, Bottas has just cleaned it up. Now we've got a real problem on our hands. Misinterpretation, misdirection, miss everything. And 8 minutes to throw. I mean, it felt longer watching the action happen as it all panned out, because the laps obviously are ticking by quite quickly. I just feel that it shouldn't have been a yellow. It shouldn't have been a yellow. Certainly a double. It wasn't on the racing line, and we saw from the sprint race, and we saw from earlier in the Grand Prix, no one's going down at that point of the race track to make the pass. They're all late dives and late lunges past the pit exit. So it wasn't in the passing zone either, I suppose, of the racetrack. In terms of, it was in the zone, but you know what I mean, in the small area that was right down by the corner. So it was only because Bottas was staying out of the way that it caused a bigger problem. Just what are we doing here? Is the question that I'm sure the marshals on probably both sides of the racetrack had. Probably if there was one standing up in the flag stand or in that kind of area in the pit lane, they can all see it from all their certain points around that area of the circuit, and it just needed somebody to go, this is what we're doing. And clearly that was not what was going on upstairs in race control.
Do you think that the ideas that we see in other series like IndyCar and NASCAR could be identified here? Because we've got the virtual safety car. It's designed for this type of thing. But in IndyCar and NASCAR, especially on ovals, sometimes on road courses, we have somebody go around, we have debris on the circuit, it's a yellow instantly to bring everything under control, and safety is paramount. So do we need to go in that route and have virtual safety cars sort of be reintroduced, because they have gone away a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, even if you think about NASCAR more specifically, we used to get so much debris cautions 5+ years ago. All the time we were getting cautions for some kind of debris, and then they'd never show it on the TV, which is, I know if Ben's watching, he'll I'm sure have comments on that, but let's not go into that now. There's other series that have like a zone on the race, slow zones we see in the FIA WEC, or Code 60 as it's called in other championships, where a certain sector of the racetrack is under the virtual safety car so that they can get out and clear, so the rest of the track is green. Something certainly needs to be done in that, perhaps in that instance. One thing I'd like to point out while we're talking about this is, and we didn't see it at the weekend, but it's happened multiple times before. If there is a first lap incident at turn 1 of a race, wherever, could be Monza, Barcelona, Zandvoort, which we're going to talk about later, wherever, safety car, bang, everyone stops, slows right down. Why? Can we not let them get back somewhere near the last corner where we know there is nothing because it's the first lap of the race,
Then do it.
before we have other people going over the back, launching over the back of people when they don't catch the safety car being deployed. That is something that really worries me all the time when that kind of stuff happens. I know it's not really what we're talking about here, but it's kind of in the same realm. And if they're going to do something about this, which perhaps they are going to, but not the way anyone wants them to do, that might be something that needs to be checked and cleared up as well.
Yeah, the FIA did put out a document stating that they
Hello,
had... Hello, Ben. Yeah, that they had reviewed what happened on the circuit, and they said that they couldn't put a virtual safety car out because the field was too spread out, and they couldn't deploy a full safety car because it didn't necessitate. That's the one. A full safety car. So the fact that the field was too spread out, they couldn't put out a full safety car. So just stay in with me for a second, because we've got two things to show you now. Moving back to the Lando Norris penalty and the start of all this saga, the harshness of a 10-second stop-go penalty effectively did destroy his race. Now, look at this telemetry data from the...
Seems like we've lost Josh, perhaps, which is very annoying. While we get Josh back, quick, the virtual safety car wasn't deployed because the field was spread out. What? I thought that was what it was for, so that we didn't have to get everyone back together again and use a full safety car. If that's the line that they've used in this scenario, then that is completely bonkers.
So let's start by taking a look at Lando Norris's penalty. Now, watch above Verstappen. The yellow flag comes out. Max immediately lifts off twice, but Lando doesn't. Now, as they enter turn one, yellow flag goes away, comes back, and goes away again as Piastri, Leclerc, and Sainz go through, each time disabling the DRS. And it eventually goes away after Sainz goes before Perez and Hamilton get to that point of the track. Let's speed it up a little bit then as well, and go to the end of the lap and catch up with Verstappen and Norris once more. Now watch Verstappen through the same part, but without the yellow flags this time, a small lift of the throttle compared to Lando Norris, who stays flat. Moving on to lap 34, this is when Bottas ran over the debris. You can see a huge lift of the throttle and pressing the brake, but then allows Charles Leclerc to go through. Now, later in that same lap, Carlos Sainz has already gone through the debris. He's ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton, exit turn 6, entry into 7, gets the puncture. And you can see him immediately lifting off. Carlos Sainz doesn't get the puncture until after turn 14. You can see it now. He started to lift off. So that allows Perez to go through. Hamilton is being caught by Gasly and then caught by Russell and Zhou Guanyu. Speeded up, Carlos Sainz gets to the pit lane first. Lewis Hamilton has to complete the entire lap and drops down the order before Sainz rejoins now on hard tyres and the safety car gets deployed for the debris. This allows a free pit stop for Max Verstappen and Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. They both all come into the pit lane and change on to the hard compound tyres. Now moving on to the safety car restart, we're going to highlight Verstappen and Perez. Look at the throttle trace there from Perez. Spins it around coming out of turn 14 for whatever reason, and he's left in the middle of the field. That's the point there where he revs up the throttle once more and comes back across the track dangerously, splitting up the field. And at the same time, the safety car had an issue where the safety car lights would not turn off, so the drivers had to be manually told that the safety car was coming in. That's why Max Verstappen is back in the pack up so dramatically coming into the last corner before he decides to throttle it and go there. So we're back up to racing speed, but Sergio Perez is stranded. Yellow flags do come out eventually as we speed up the footage. We've also now selected Hülkenberg, who's going to have a moment of his own coming out of turn 10. He spins up the throttle and is left at the side of the track. The field now hurtling down towards Sergio Perez. The virtual safety car is deployed, but there's gaps in the field. And with that as well, with two cars now stranded, it's decided that the full safety car must be deployed for the second time of the evening, the third time in a row. So the safety car now comes out just as Verstappen enters the line of sight for Perez, and a drama for the FIA. Yeah, my internet went off just at the right time there. The FIA is trying to get rid of me. What I was going to say was, at the telemetry data, it showed how Lando lifted up and then how everything proceeded straight afterwards. It was fantastic to be able to play around with that data and show the telemetry and just how much it affected Sainz, Hamilton, Bottas, and it did change the event of the race. So now seeing the telemetry, and clearly Norris didn't lift, but it is quite interesting to see that Verstappen, first time, yes, he did lift, but the second time, just ever so slightly, not much lifting there was going on. Alongside the errors in judgment for the race director, it's not fully understanding what was happening out on that circuit. So, Matt, do you think that Max being so vocal on the radio to the stewards to investigate Lando was right? And do you think the whole slowing under yellow needs to be reviewed and defined harsher to ensure safety?
Well, Max has obviously played the flag rules correctly. I just adjust myself in this situation, whereas Lando obviously hasn't. The penalty, we don't see it often. Even regardless of the punishment of the penalty, which was, as you said, a 10-second stop and go, the actual crime committed doesn't get done, not nearly enough. Didn't we have a couple of years ago at Suzuka where somebody really should have got done for this? I think it was Pierre Gasly, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the yellow in the rain.
The yellow flag where he almost collected the digger. Should have got done for this and didn't. So in terms of the Lando penalty, I think it's probably right. My question on all of that would be, I don't think it should have been a double waved yellow flag out to then enable him to get the penalty. Max has shouted in the referee's ear to, kind of use a footballing soccer analogy. He should be yellow carded, referee. He's done something wrong, that kind of thing. And he, Lando's kind of fallen for it as such and ended up getting the penalty. But that was what it is, kind of is what it is. Then, as you mentioned in that video, brilliantly put together video. Well done, Josh. That was excellent. With the driver tracker. Thank you. I didn't clock it at the time watching it live. The safety car lights issue. So that's another thing that we never have a problem with. And suddenly, because all of this is happening, we've got this as well, which caused
they actually swapped the safety car. The reason the safety car wasn't immediately deployed is because in that very quick period, they got out and jumped to the other one. So they literally just sort of went like out and out. Yeah, and that's why the safety car went straight out.
To me, then they do this all the time in GT World Challenge Europe, is if there's an incident, they deploy the full course yellow, they call it there, or virtual safety car as we're calling it now for F1. They will deploy that. They will get everyone slowed down, clear up debris, car in gravel trap or barrier, some degree, and then throw the safety car to pack everybody back up again for the restart. And that we never see that in Formula One. Very rarely do, where they go virtual, then go full. So that was different, but maybe that's why they had to do that, because they were scrambling. Byrne and whatnot was scrambling between. There was Mercedes, wasn't it, at the weekend? Mercedes safety cars in pit lane. So maybe they were going to, if the field had got round, they would have had a lap under virtual and then picked up the safety car while they were getting Perez's car out of the way. More on Checo later, I feel. But yeah, all in all, absolute mess.
Yeah, I've literally gone over it several times, and I was sat there because you get that data system on the timing screen. So I was going through it and highlighting the races, and I was just picking out. I spent an hour on that, by the way. So I watched that segment of the race again and again. I was picking out the best bits and who to highlight, and I would have done it live, but we didn't have the ability to do the touch screen. So I would have done that live for you. Just take it all to VAR and let Anthony Taylor decide it all.
So Premiership reference there from Matthew.
We were supposed to have VAR. But where is VAR? We were supposed to have this system in Geneva.
In Geneva, we've not seen it used, have we? They made a big about this sort of time last year, wasn't it? For this season, there was a big deal made about this. It's not been used. I'll tell you why, and you're going to get to it in a minute, because there isn't anyone in the VAR room, because they've all been told to go and do other jobs elsewhere. That'll be why.